Hey folks, Jimmy here, aka Palette of the Dead. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to what was going to be a speculation video. However, things have changed. So, before we jump into it, if you like the content on this channel, obviously give it a thumbs up. If you are new here and you haven't already subscribed, hit that subscribe button. And of course, when you heard everything on this video, by all means, give us a comment down below. I love hearing back from you guys. It goes a massive way to helping out the channel too. So, if you are new to this channel, then you may or may not know already that this channel was built on the back of Warhammer Partworks magazines, starting with Mortal Realms in 2020. We moved on to Imperium magazine, then we moved on to good old Stormbringer magazine, and now we are currently on Warhammer 40k Combat Patrol magazine. We've just had issue 50 and it's going pretty strong, and there's still 40 more issues of that magazine to go. So originally this video was going to be a pure speculation of what the future may hold for good old Partworks magazines from Hatchet Partworks, all to do with Warhammer. However, we don't actually need to speculate, because Hatchet Partworks have craftily just uploaded their website for the next magazine. So the next magazine, as you can imagine, is a Age of Sigmar magazine. It is Warhammer Age of Sigmar Spearhead. So Spearhead, if you're not aware, is pretty much the Age of Sigmar equivalent to 40k Combat Patrol. Pre-designated lists of units, pre-designed scenarios, all designed to be slightly fair, well, as closely balanced as you can probably get with a lot of it, without having massive armies. And yeah, it is what it is. They're pretty decent, they're quite good fun, and it's a quick way of playing. So the average Spearhead game takes around about an hour to 2 hours. The same with Combat Patrol. When you get bigger armies, it takes longer and longer and longer, and such like. So works in a similar way. And the next good old Warhammer magazine is all focused on that. So Combat Patrol, if you're not aware, is 90 issues and you're getting 9 factions in total, 9 different Combat Patrols, plus an extra mini for each, or an extra set of minis for each faction. So for instance, the Gene Stealer cults get the Atalan Jackals, the Astra Militarum get the Heavy Weapon Squad, and the Space Marines got the Chaplain on bike, and so on. So each one of them factions got an extra mini that isn't normally part of a Combat Patrol. You're just getting a bonus mini out of it. The next magazine is going to work differently, and we'll go through exactly how it's going to work. It is going to be 90 issues, and it's not going to be too bad. The full release can change, because I'm suspecting there will be a trial period, but we're not 100% sure on that, but we'll see about that one. But yeah, you never know. So the main things we're going to go through is going to be what you're going to get in the magazine across them 90 issues, and the subscription bonuses for premium subscription, and the cost as well. So kind of a how is it worth the money, which is exactly what I did with my first video on the Mortal Realms magazine. So we're going to have a look at that. Anyway, I suppose I should stop waffling on and just crack on with it. And I'm actually going to let you guys know this is probably about the 5th attempt at recording this video, and it would have been a lot longer if I wanted it to be. However, I thought that was, it got over an hour long and I thought that was too long. Anyway, the way the magazine is going to work, we're not going to get 9 Spearhead sets, we're actually going to get 12. So no bonus image kind of minis with the Spearheads. We are going to get 12 Spearhead sets standard, plus paints, plus some scenery, and obviously plus the usual paintbrushes, texture spreader, the playthroughs, build guides, paint guides, lore, history, story, all that type of stuff. So you'll expect all of that, and obviously it comes at a cheaper cost than buying it outright if you wanted 12 Spearhead sets. So this could be really good for gaming clubs and such like that. So firstly, as you can imagine, we're going to get the Stormcast Eternals. Obviously it's going to be the newer Stormcast Eternals, and it is the newer Spearhead, which is not available as an actual Spearhead box. basically you get these guys as part of the Ultimate Starter Collection, or they were part of the Dominion box. So if you bought the not Dominion, Skaven Tide box set, should I say, which was the newest edition set, then you got all of the minis that are part of this good old Spearhead set. So, firstly, we get the Lord Veritant with Griff Crow. So, a combination of melee and magic, and obviously the Griff Crow looks a little bit different from the Griff Hounds that we've had before, a little bit sleeker, a little bit smaller, and has a little bit more of a uniqueness. It's pretty good. The Lord Vigilant is actually a pretty cool mini. I must admit, it was the first mini from the Skaven Tide box set that I actually bothered painting up. I thought it was really, really good. Do I wish I'd painted it slightly different? Kind of. There are slight tweaks that I must admit I want to make to it, but it is a real cool mini. And the Lord, good old Veritant, is a mage, as well as carrying a big sword and stuff like that, which is pretty cool. Secondly, we get another hero unit, which is the Lord Vigilant on Griff Stalker. So, the Griff Stalker is a sleeker, slightly changed version of the Griff Charger minis. It's a little bit more stealthy. The Lord Vigilant's a pretty cool mini as well. He looks pretty damn good. And they have the newer armor style. They also have that kind of darker aesthetic to them. Again, a real good mini. One that I must admit I haven't actually got around to painting yet, because I'd like to take my time with painting and get sidetracked with other projects like the Sky Lantern for good old Grand Cafe. And yeah, they're really good. So they're pretty good. They're your hero units for the Spearhead. Then we get 5 Stormcast Liberators. 5 is a single unit. So if you were going to buy the Liberators, normally you get 10. We're only going to get 5, which is a little bit of a disappointment, but they are the new style Liberators and not the old style Liberators. So these ones have the newer armor. They look a little bit cooler, a little bit sleeker, and they have a little bit more of a more fitting kind of aesthetic to them. So they fit perfectly with your Lord Veritant and Lord Vigilant and the new minis like the Lord Terminos and such like that. So it fits in very well. Lastly, we get 3 of the new winged prosecutors. So for prosecutor minis, obviously throw javelins. They're pretty cool. I must admit, I really like the new ones. I think the new ones look far better than the originals, and they have the added bonus. They don't have the stupid clear flying stems, which I must admit is one of my biggest pet peeves to any of the flying minis. I don't like the clear flying stems. I think they look a bit meh and a bit cheap. I like the fact that these look like they're launching off of pillars and stuff like that and parts of buildings, and yeah, it just makes them look more interesting and much more fun. All of these Stormcast are really cool. Now, you can buy some of these separately, but as I say, you can get these as all part of the new box sets. So if you want a new starter set, you can get these guys. Talking of a new starter set, obviously, we get the new big bad for good old 4th edition Age of Sigmar, which is for Skaven, all revamped, and we're getting some real cool units in there. And in all honesty, if you want a big Skaven army, this magazine might be worth doubling up on for certain issues, because, well, you'll see later on. Anyway, so for Ratman obviously are back and badder than ever. Firstly, we get a hero unit. We get the Grey Seer. So the Grey Seer is very close to the Horned Rat. They are the chosen of the Horned Rat. They're mages. They're sneaky. They're powerful. They're very unique. And obviously they love their powdered warpstone, because, you know, who doesn't? Then we get another hero-ish unit, which is the Warlock Engineer. So the Warlock Engineer has some certain traits that works very well with other Skaven, especially the Engineers and the Rattling Gunners and all that type of stuff. It gives them some kind of buffs. However, the Engineer is pretty cool. He does look pretty good. It's on the same sprue, if I remember rightly, as the Grey Seer. And yeah, which is exactly why you're getting it with this, because obviously they don't want to be redesigning new sprues all the time. So that's pretty decent. We also get a kind of another mini to kind of act as a bit of a leader, and it's also a big one. So we get the Claw Lord on Norbeast, which is a high level Skaven warrior, riding what is a pure abomination of twisted mad science from the Skaven. And yeah, it is what it is. It's a weird creature, and Skaven love their weird creatures, don't they? So yeah, why not? Talking of weird creatures and twisted science of the Skaven, we get 3 of the rat ogres. So these are the new rat ogres, so they look slightly different. They're pretty cool, they're pretty big, butch and buff and everything like that. And yeah, they're pretty good. And you might want to double up on these because there's a good reason for it. So that's really, really cool stuff. And then obviously you need some fodder units, so we get 20 clan rats. These are also the new style clan rats and not the older style clan rats. And yeah, very, very good. So all in all, a lot of newer minis. So they may have had some variations of these before. So for instance, the Grey Seer, we've had Grey Seers before. We've had different Warlock Engineers before. We've had Claw Lords before. We've had good old Rat Ogres before, and different clan rats. But everything from the Stormcast Eternals and the Skaven are 2024 version minis. So they're all brand spanking new designs compared to what they used to be. So they're also all pretty much push fit as well. So they're very, very simple to put together. Happy days. So that's 2 out of 12 down. Moving on from there, though, we're going to actually look at the actual entire collection image and go from there. So starting on the bottom left and working our way clockwise round, we're going to get the Cities of Sigmar. The Cities of Sigmar, one of my favourite factions within the Mortal Realms. Yes, they are generic humans, but I kind of like them. They look pretty good. So this is the older Spearhead box out of the 2. We would have been nice to have the new one, but the older one does have some real cool units in there. So for instance, you get the Cavalier Marshal to lead them, which is one of the nicest cavalry sculpts that I think GW have ever done. A fantastic unit. I must admit, I've built mine and not painted it, but it is one of the coolest cavalry units out there. Then we get 5 of the Cavaliers, which also have the same aesthetic as the Cavalier Marshal, as you can imagine, and they fit in very nicely. My only kind of drawback with these guys is I would prefer different weapons for them. They have very, very kind of short weapons like flails and swords and stuff like that. I would have preferred them with something a little bit bigger and a little bit different, which would make them a little bit more unique and a bit more fun. Then we have 10 Steel Helms, which are the generic soldiers of the Cities of Sigmar. They have a good design to them. They're a little bit ramshackle in their look, so they have some varying degrees of how much armour they're carrying and what weapons they're carrying. So they're not all swordsmen. Some of them have cudgels, some of them have axes, some of them have swords, some of them have other bits and pieces. Yeah, they look pretty good. So they are a bit ramshackle, but pretty decent at the same time. And then lastly, we get a nice large Ironweld Great Cannon. Now, the Ironweld Great Cannon is probably my favourite artillery unit in the entirety of Warhammer Age of Sigmar. The only one that beats it in my book from the entirety of the Warhammer ranges is the Great Cannons of Grand Cathay. I prefer them. They have a nice, cool look to them. But the Ironweld Great Cannon does as well. It's got that big kind of wooden barricade shield at the front of it, and the 2 crew members have some nice unique looks to them and have some build options as well, which is pretty cool. So really good stuff. If you were going to get the new box, which I would have preferred to have with this, then you got things like the Wildercore Hunters, which are fantastic minis, and I really enjoyed painting mine. You get the Fusiliers, you get the Fusil Major on the Warhawk Ogre, and you get the Alchemite Warforger. All really, really good units. And yeah, it is what it is. But, if you get this magazine and you get the original one, and then you buy that second one on top, it all fits in very, very well and gives you a nice large army. So why not? It is what it is. Then we're going to move on to the next set, which is the very, very fishy Idoneth Deepkin. This set also, in all honesty, it looks like it is the older set out of the two and not the current one. It's not the end of the world though, however, you do get some real cool units in there and some that I must admit I really do like. So, starting off and leading the group is the Isharan Soul Scryer. A cool unit. I do like the sculpt. I think it works very, very well. It has a nice uniqueness to it, and they have some real good mages within their ranks, which are pretty damn cool. Then we get 10 Namartai Thralls. Yeah, they're the generic soldiers of the Idoneth Deepkin. They are pretty good, and there are Thralls, and then there are the other ones. There's build options for them and stuff like that. I do like them. They're really, really cool. So you can have melee and you can have ranged versions of the Thralls and stuff like that, of the Namartai. Yeah, really, really good. They're very, very weird because they don't have eyes, though. That is the main weird thing with them, though. So be aware of that. Then you get 3 of the Akelian Morsar Guard, which are the eel-riding warriors. They also make the Ishlian Guard, which have a slight different look to them. Also, really, really cool. I do quite like them. I like the aesthetic of good old Idoneth Deepkin, and the fact that they use actual kind of sea creatures as an idea as well. And talking of sea creatures, for their bigger unit, you get the Achillean Alapex mini, which is the shark riding boy. That's fantastic. I really, really like that mini. The only one that I prefer that I like better out of the whole Idoneth Deepkin range is the Leviathan, which is fantastic. But sharks are cool. Sharks are real, real cool. So that is an absolute fantastic set for this magazine, and one that I must admit I can't knock. I can't knock it. I think it's a real, real good one. The newer box has some different choices in there. So some of the newer minis, including the seahorse riding Achillean Lord or King or whatever it's called. But yeah, they're pretty good. So real, real good stuff there. And it should be a good little fun box to make. And the fact is, with the good old Idoneth Deepkin, you can, if you want to, keep them really thematic on their bases and go aquatic with them with things like clear resin and such like that, if you feel up to it. This must admit, not really something I've tried, but you can make them look real good fun and have a bit of fun with it. So, yeah, your choice. Right then, so Spearhead number 5 is a Sylvaneth. So, unfortunately, the downside with this one is Sylvaneth range isn't huge, and we got the vast majority of this box with Stormbringer magazine. And if you had the premium subscription Stormbringer magazine, you got the entire lot. So I personally don't care for this one. I think it's probably the worst choice they could have made. They could have went for something far better. If they were sticking with the Forces of Order, they could have gone far better than this one. But it is what it is. I unfortunately don't have a say in the matter, so yeah, we'll leave it there. Now, this box is it's dated, so you get a branch which in there, which, you know, it's all right. We had it before with good old Stormbringer magazine. We get the Tree Lord, which also makes the Spirit of Durfu. Also, we had it with good old Stormbringer magazine. We get 3 Kurnoth Hunters, which you got if you had the premium edition of Stormbringer magazine, which I do quite like the Kurnoth Hunters. I'm not going to lie to you. They are pretty good and they look pretty cool. Then, lastly, you get 5 of the Tree Revenants, or you can make them into Spite Revenants. Again, we had these with Stormbringer magazine. In fact, we had both variations of them with Stormbringer magazine. So, it's a very disappointing range. It's only 10 miniatures for the Sylvaneth, and it's just so lackluster. There could have been something so much better there in its place, but no, they chose to go this way, and I disagree with it. I mean, in total, this magazine run is going to give us, I think it's 4 or 5 Forces of Order, which I personally, I'm not fussed by. So a couple of them, I think, brilliant choices. I love having those as part of it, but they could have made it more equal, have 3 for each different Grand Alliance, and it would have made more sense and been far better, but they didn't, and they've given us this load of junk instead. It is what it is. Moving across from the very, very boring plain tree men that is Sylvaneth, we have the prehistoric Seraphon, which I must admit I do love the Seraphon. So, these guys are also known as lizard men in old Hammer terms. Genuinely, very, very fun. Very, very crazy. Very, very cool. They're basically giant lizards with an Aztec vibe to them, which is pretty cool. I must admit, I quite like it. So, you get a very older style model to kind of lead the group, which is the Saurus Old Blood on Carnosaur. You can make several different variations of this, so you can have it as a skink on Carnosaur, you can have it as skink on Troglodon, you can have the Saurus Old Blood on foot, you can have a couple of other variations as well, so there is build options to it, and it looks pretty good. I must admit, I already have one of these guys, and he's been sat on a shelf for the last, I don't know, 9 years since I painted it. But I do like the mini. Would have been nice to see something different in there, but again, really not my choice. So it is what it is, but this is still a pretty cool mini. Then we get 3 of the new version of the Croxigors. Again, I like these minis. I think they're pretty cool. I genuinely think the new Croxigors are better than the old Croxigors. The old Croxigors felt a little bit lackluster and a little bit dull, and the new ones are just so much more interesting. However, there are more interesting minis that you can get for the good old Seraphon. In fact, there's a newer version of the good old Spearhead, which I personally would have preferred because it gives you more minis and they're much more fun. The other thing you get is 10 of the Saurus Warriors. These are the new version Saurus Warriors. So they're a little bit bigger, a little bit different, they're a little bit more unique. They have better shields instead of the crappy round little shields that they had before. They have these nice kind of more curvaceous shields. And yeah, they are really good. I do genuinely like the new Saurus Warriors. I think they're really, really cool, really, really fun. Now, if you were going to have the other Seraphon Spearhead box in there instead, which I personally would have preferred, you got some real cool units in there. So you got the Saurus Warriors again, because you can't really go too far without having them around. You got the good old, the Spawn of Kotek, which is 3 skink handlers and a pretty cool mini. You got the Jaws of Itzil, you got the Hunters of Huanshi, which was the Warhammer Warcry box, which I must admit, I have that box and still haven't opened that after I bought it 3 or 4 years ago. But it is what it is. But real cool stuff. That box is far better. It's 31 minis in total, and is far more enjoyable, in my opinion. But you know, beggars can't be choosers. It is what it is. Right then. So after the good old Dino Boys, we do unfortunately go back in time and get something that we had exactly with good old Stormbringer magazine, which is a real big shame. And yeah, it is what it is. Now, I do quite like this set, but I wish it was something different. So we're getting the Gloomspite Gitz again. The Gitz, though, include the Loom Boss that we had with Stormbringer magazine, which was the first mini that we got of the Gitz that we got with Stormbringer magazine. We get 10 Squig Hoppers, or you can make them into Boing Rot Bounders, or if you like me, you bought a set, 2 sets of a magazine, so you can have each. You get 20 Moon Clan Stabbers, which, again, I bought 2 sets of each because they also make those Moon Clan Shooters, an old Sculpt, unfortunately, as well, which, yeah, there just could be something sort of much better there instead. And you get 3 Rock Troggoths. Now, you didn't get these with Stormbringer magazine per se, but you did get them with the premium subscription if you got that one. Generally, I would have went with a different Spearhead other than this one, because this one's very dated, and we've had it with good old Stormbringer magazine. There could have been so much better there. The Ogre Moor Tribes, for instance, or the Iron Jaws, good old Auric, good old Spearhead. would have been so much better, in my opinion. Moving on from that disappointment, though, we go straight into the Ossiarch Bonereapers. Now, I do kind of like the Ossiarch Bonereapers. Nagash's Bone Boys are, they're pretty cool looking. They have a different uniqueness to them. They're also, if you want a very fast army to paint, very simple in a lot of ways. So a little bit like the Stormcast Eternals, how simple they are to paint, these guys are also pretty damn simple to paint. So, in the set, we get the Mortisan Soul Reaper to act as our leader, which is a pretty cool mini. I do like this sculpt. We get a big guy in the shape of the Gothisar Harvester. In all honesty, I don't care for this sculpt. I think it looks a bit meh and a bit dull and a bit, yeah, there could have been something so much better, and it could have been such a cool weapon, really, within the Ossiarch arsenal, but it's a little bit dull. We get 5 of the Kavalos Death Riders, which are really, really cool. I do like these minis. They look really, really good. And then finally, 20 of the Mortek Guard, which I like the Mortek Guard. They are very, very straightforward. They are very uniform. They are very simple to put together. They are very simple to look at. And, as I say, easiest by far to paint in any of the armies, apart from the Stormcast Eternals. This has to be one of the easiest to paint. So straightforward. You don't have to go into a lot of detail on these guys to make them look good. So, not too bad. As I say, some real good sculpts there, but, again, it's another one where it's a little bit wishy-washy. They could have given us something better, but in all honesty, it's not too bad at exactly the same time. So, we'll just take it. So, after that, we're going to go into a more chaosified area of the magazine's run. So, we're going to get the followers of Grandfather Nurgle himself, and that is the Maggotkin of Nurgle. So, these guys come in the shape of the lesser demon that is known as a Spoilpox Scrivener. I quite like this mini. It's so quirky, it's so fun, and a little bit more enjoyable. We'll get 10 of the Plague Bearers of Nurgle as well, these mutated people. Essentially, they were all lesser demons and such like that are there to just spread disease and decay and bog down enemies and such like that. You also get 5 of the heavily armoured Putrid Blight Kings. Again, heavily armoured warriors that have their own mutations, whether it's tentacles, whether it's big massive rents and mouths within their own stomach and all that type of stuff. Real cool stuff. And finally, 2 of the Flying Pus Goyle Blightlords, which also have some slight build options for them if you want them to. So it can be a Blight King with a Blightlord and all that type of stuff. Pretty cool stuff. So, a fairly fun army that can be done in such a way that it just makes it look grimy, makes it look a bit unclean and disgusting and snotty and pus-filled and everything like that, which can go a long way to making a real good themed army. So, pretty cool stuff there. We also get another good old Chaos army, and it's in the shape of the Slaves to Darkness. Now, I do have mixed feelings about this one. I think, yes, having Slaves to Darkness is a real good choice because they can fit anywhere within a Chaos army. However, there are other Chaos factions that I would have had instead. In fact, even this Slaves to Darkness box could have been better if it was the newer one, in my opinion. So, we get a Chaos Lord, which a decent sculpt. They're not too bad. They are pretty alright. We get a Chaos Chariot, which I've never liked the look of. I've always thought they look so out of place. In fact, in the Age of Sigmar, any chariots I don't think look right. They're a little bit meh and a little bit dull, and yeah, you could have something so much better there in its place. We get 10 Chaos Warriors, which are your generic fodder. They're very, very simple to paint. They're like Chaos Space Marines. They are so uniform that they're made very, very simple. And then finally, 5 Chaos Knights, also slightly uniform because they're just mounted Chaos Warriors. And yeah, they're all right. They're not too bad. They're all designed in the name of the Dark Master himself, and to not follow any one particular Chaos God, but to follow Chaos in general, which is pretty cool and not too bad. Personally, I would have preferred the Dark Oath Spearhead box instead. but it is what it is. Then we're going to go into the middle of the image. We're going to start with the Lumineth Realm-lords, the high and mighty pointy-eared followers of the twin gods Tyrion and Teclis. I do kind of like the Realm-lords. They have a lot of detail to them, and they're a bit swishy and everything like that. But they are pretty good. So, with this one, we get a Sinari Cathalar mini, which is a pretty cool mini. I do like it. It's pretty good. There are other real cool heroes as well within the Realm-lords range, which are also real cool minis. We get 5 of the Venari Blade Lords, which are really good. I must admit, I have always wanted some and never got around to buying any, so this magazine will be right up my alley for this, guys. Then we get 10 of the Urlan Wardens, which are pretty cool. They're the spear-carrying good old elves. And then, finally, 10 of the Urlan Sentinels, which are your ranged units. Again, they are pretty good. I do like them. They're quite enjoyable. In fact, I think I've got some because I bought the Lumineth army when that first came out, and in all honesty, I've painted absolutely none of it. But, you know, that's the way I tend to do things. Enough about that, though. But, yeah, they're pretty good. They have a nice smoothness to them, which makes them look really good, and they're a bit more elegant in their kind of elvish way. A little bit more like the high elves of good old Oldhammer and the good old Warhammer of the Old World, but you can't knock them. They're pretty good and pretty good fun. So, that leaves one good old spearhead box left to kind of go through, and it's the Soulblight Gravelords, the vampire followers of Nagash, although they're not always a big fan of Nagash. I really like Soulblight Gravelords. They're one of my favourite factions in all of Age of Sigmar. With this one, you're going to get the Vampire Lord, which is a real cool mini, and it looks really good. You get 3 Vargeists. Again, they look really good. They have build options as well, so if you don't want them to be vampiric, you can have them as crypt flayers or even crypt horrors, and have them with the good old flesh eater courts if you wanted to, and stuff like that, which again, really good. You get 5 Blood Knights, mounted vampires. They are really good. I genuinely like them. The idea with the good old Gravelords is that they're not, vampires aren't so numerous, but you don't get everything that is a vampire and such like that, and the Blood Knights are pretty cool, and they kind of shows that the vampires are held in a more elegant position and not just generic fodder, because your generic fodder is things like the Death Rattle Skeletons, which these new Death Rattle Skeletons are really good. I have a couple of sets of these that I've still not built or painted, and I've had them for years, but they're really good, and they are another one that can be done very simply, so you don't have to go too much in detail with them, but they look really good. So, in all honesty, one of my favourite armies of the Age of Sigmar that have some great options if you want to bump it into a full army later on. So, happy days with that one, and some great characters that can be got within the Soulblight range. So, you know, always worth keeping an eye out for. So, that's not too bad. It's pretty decent, and you've got some real good stuff in there. Now, this collection range also has some scenery in there. Not a lot, but it has some, whereas good old Combat Patrol magazine, which we're currently on with at the moment, does not have any scenery in there. In fact, you can buy it for quite a bit of money separately from Hatchet's website, but you don't have to with the magazine. You don't really have to. Now, it's pretty decent, pretty good stuff. So you get the recent starter set scenery, and you get the new grave set scenery, both of which fit in with older kits like the 3rd edition Domicile Shell and stuff like that, and the Garden of Moor or Sigmarite Mausoleum, whichever one you want to call it, that we got with good old Stormbringer magazine, for instance, with good old Mortal Realms magazine, should I say. But really cool stuff. Now, I personally would have chosen slightly different spearheads for this, because you could go easier with having 3 for each. So we already have 3 good old Chaos factions in there. You've got 5 good old Forces of Order factions, 2 for death and 1 for destruction. Personally, I would have tried to go for 3 of each. So you could have had the Iron Jaws for Gloomspite Gitz and the Ogre Moor tribes for the forces of destruction. For the forces of death, you could have added the Nighthorn to it, and you could have had a pretty cool army that's spectral, vampiric, or bony, which also real good, and it works very, very nicely. Or you could have added Flesh Eater Quartz in there if you wanted to, but they are a little bit similar to the good old Soulblight Gravelords, in my opinion, but pretty good, so it's not too bad. So now I think it's time to talk about cost. So we have 12 Spearhead boxes across 90 issues plus the usual bits and pieces. The first issue is going to be $2.99. The second issue should be around about $5.99-ish or $7.99 or something like that. Then every issue after that should be $9.99 unless they decide to bump the price up. Hopefully they won't, but it has happened before. But $9.99 an issue. This means the entire collection comes in at £888.10p or thereabouts. Sounds like a lot of money, but if you are going to buy 12 Spearhead boxes directly from GW, that sets you back £1,050. So straight off the Spearhead boxes, it's a saving of £161.90, which isn't bad. It's not a bad saving at all. It's pretty decent. But you also have to add in the cost of paint. Don't know his exact number of paints, but on average it's between 20 and 30. So taking the idea that it could be 30, that's £140 worth of paints. You get brushes, about £12 of brushes, not a massive amount, which is pretty good. And then say the scenery is 80 quid in total. That means the savings jumps up to around about £350 to £400 region. But until we get a full broken down list of everything that's in there, you can't really judge everything per se. But pretty good stuff. You also, for a new starter or anybody getting into it, you get a broken down version of the core rules book, scenarios, you get some other bits and pieces as well. You get lore, you get history, you get good old fiction in there, and a lot of choices to kind of go through. So there are some real good bits to the magazine that are brilliant for new players. So it's not too bad. It's not the end of the world. If you're going to be say like a gaming club or anything like that, this magazine could be real good for you because it gives you loads of options then. So 12 different factions, so that's so much kind of playability to go through for people that may not be able to afford everything and be able to do all of their own stuff and such like. So, you know, it's one way of doing things. If you want to go a little bit further with the collection, though, obviously you can get the premium subscription, which gives you extra kits as well, which are generally bigger kits. So there will be 4 premium kits that are available as part of a premium subscription. It does cost extra for the subscription, though. We'll go into that in a moment. Let's go through them contents, though. So they've already announced that premium kit number 1 is for the Stormcast Eternals, and it is Iona's Cryptborn. So Cryptborn is a living legend within the Stormcast ranks, and he is sitting atop an ancient and powerful Dracolith as well. A real good looking mini, and pretty damn cool, and very recent as well. This kit is an £85 kit on its own. So if you buy it from GW, 85 quid is what you would be paying for this. So, you know, has a bit of an expenditure on that one. The second premium kit is a Greater Demon of Nurgle, which is Rotigus. Rotigus is a Great Unclean One. This kit also makes the Great Unclean Ones, and the Great Unclean Ones can be used in Age of Sigmar or 40k. So you do have options with this one as well. So it's not just an Age of Sigmar mini. You can use it for either. Pretty cool stuff. This kit would set you back £100. So not bad at all. The third kit is for the Ossiarch Bonereapers, and it's a Mortarch as well, and it's Catacross for Mortarch of the Necropolis. This is the cheapest premium kit out of the 4, but it's the one that most looks like a diorama in my opinion. He's attended by his most trusted retainers, and it looks a bit more regal and such like as well. It's a £74 kit if you're buying it on its own, but a real cool looking mini, and it's not bad. Lastly though is the most expensive one out of all of them. So Premium Kit 4 is for Forces of Destruction, and it's big. It's for Mega Gargant. So the website lists this as the Beast Smasher Mega Gargant, but this Mega Gargant kit also can make different ones. So you can make it into a Gatebreaker, which is pretty damn cool, and it has affiliations with other factions as well. So for instance, Gatebreaker can be affiliated with the forces of good old Nagash and be used as a mercenary for the forces of Nagash. The War Stomper, which also looks really, really cool and can be used as a mercenary for other factions as well. Then we have the Kraken Eater, which there are some real good versions of a Kraken Eater where it's been kit bashed and such like that, which can be real good stuff. Or if you want to be very fancy and regal about things, you can make it into King Brod, the ruler of the Mega Gargants, and also a real good looking mini. So it is entirely up to you. Have a bit of fun with it. But if you were going to buy a Mega Gargant on its own, that's £135. So it's an expensive mini that comes with a magazine, premium edition. Now, the cost of a premium edition is an extra £2.50 per issue. So you're talking an extra spend of around about £225 across for 90 issues. However, you are getting £394 worth of minis with that £225. So that's a saving of £169 on there, which is not bad. It's pretty decent. It's a decent subscription saving. Yeah, I can't knock it. It does work out pretty all right if you want to pay monthly and get all of that. Now, the other thing that you have to be aware if you are going to subscribe to the magazine is there are some subscription gifts, as they call them. You only have the option for these if you subscribe within the first 4 issues though. So if you subscribe after issue 4, you're not going to get any of this stuff. So one of them is pretty decent. You get an issue for free. So basically, if you subscribe at issue 1, you pay for issue 1 and 2. Issue 3 will cost you nothing, and then you pay from issue 4 onwards. So it saves you a tenner in total. The other things you get though, you get a Citadel modelling kit, which is a basic mould line remover and basic cutters. If you want, you can spend more money to get better out there, but these will do exactly the job that you need them to do nonetheless. So, simple as. The second one is a free binder and dividers. Now, this one is a freebie. However, every other binder after this one costs you, I think, around about $9.99, and they send you 4 or 5 in total, including the free one. So it does cost you extra to get them binders. I normally buy mine from my local shop, so I don't get the binders, and I buy a binder from Ryman for a £5, and it does exactly the same job. It's just not branded. If you want the binders, they're pretty good. The dividers will come in handy as well. So that's not too bad. Then you also get 3 extra paintbrushes. This is a Citadel large base brush, which will come in handy for big units, if you're not spray painted anyway. A small layer brush, also very, very good, and a small dry brush. Yeah, the dry brushes are what they are. Citadel brushes are pretty decent. They're a bit more expensive than most brushes, but they work very, very well. They're not too bad. You can get cheaper brushes that do exactly the same job though, in all honesty. Then you get an exclusive branded mug. In all honesty, yeah, it's just a mug. It's not heat changing or anything like that. I wish it was. But the mugs that you get are, yeah, as I say, they're just basic. It's just a basic mug. You could make a mug very, very similar through Moonpig or any one of them type of websites, and you could get a mug that's more your speed and design and everything like that if you wanted to. But it's not too bad. Lastly though, you do get an extra mini out of this kind of if you're subscribing, and that is a Stormcast Eternal Knight Relictor mini. Now, this is a £20 to £25 mini on its own. It's not bad. It's not a bad mini at all. It does work pretty well. It's pretty cool. It's not too bulky or anything like that. It is just a standard generic Stormcast Eternal height. Yeah, it's pretty decent. I've got one of them that I've not painted, and yeah, it is what it is, but it's a decent one. So, up to you if you're going to subscribe. Your choice. Now, I am going to go through what the first 4 issues looks like, and yeah, for some real good ones. So, for some real good bargains in the first 4 issues alone. So, issue 1 will bring us the Stormcast Eternal Lord Veritans mini with Griffcrow, because they're on the same sprue, which, pretty cool minis. I do like them. You also get the Skaven Greyseer and Warlock Engineer. Again, they're on the same sprue. Also, real cool minis. So, that's not bad. If you were to buy these directly from GW, if they had released them singularly, you're probably talking 20 quid per mini, which makes a £2.99 magazine an absolute bargain. So, real good stuff there. We'll also get 6 plain dice with it. Yeah, who cares about dice? And I'm guessing we get one of the tiny little play mats as well, which, yeah, is just kind of designed to kind of get you going. But, yeah, real good stuff. It's not bad. For £2.99, that is a lot of stuff for it, and very, very good introductory price. Issue 2 is also very good value, as it comes with the free Skaven Rat Ogres. This should be $5.99 to $7.99 in that kind of price range. If you want a big ratty army, get yourself a handful of copies of these, because you can have loads of rat ogres on the go, and they're a bit tougher than your clan rats and such like that. So worth it just for them, just for that bargain. Pretty good stuff, especially as rat ogres are £37 for 3 of them, and you're getting them for cheaper, for well under a third of the cost. So, not bad at all on that one. Issue number 3 is back to Stormcast Eternals, and it's a Stormcast Eternal Liberator, so you get 5 of them. Normally, if you bought a box of them for £37, that's 10 minis. So at $9.99, you're less than half price again with these for half of the box, which isn't too bad. If you want a big Stormcast army, obviously you're going to want multiple copies of this issue, because then you can have loads of Liberators. A squad of Liberators is 5. You can have a reinforced squad, which is 10, and such like that if you wanted to. But it is entirely up to you, and it works very, very well. Issue number 4 is the first paint issue, though. So this is one where you're first kind of making a loss in quotation marks. So, you get 2 pots of paint, a Bad and Black and Retributor Armour. Both real, very, very handy and versatile paints, but you're only getting 2 paints. And you also get a cheap NAF starter brush, which I must admit is one of the worst brushes I have ever used. By all means, when you get it, get yourself some proper brushes and chuck that one in the bin, because it's crap. You get better with a magazine at a later point anyway. They give you a couple of the white Citadel regular brushes, which are far, far better. Issue number 5 is a mystery. Now, issue number 5 normally comes with an exclusive mini that you can pretty much only get with that magazine. Chances are it's going to be a Stormcast Eternal. With all the other previous magazines we've had for poster boys, so for instance for 40k magazines we've always had a Space Marine as the bonus mini and the exclusive mini. With the Age of Sigmar magazines, we've always had a Stormcast Eternal as our exclusive mini. So I would imagine it's a Stormcast Eternal, as long as they're doing an exclusive mini. I haven't seen a picture of one, though, and I've not been able to find a picture of one. Now, last things to go through here. The release date. Now, this, at the moment, may only be the trial period dates, but it could be the actual full launch. They haven't really described it, and I haven't really seen anything to say or been able to find anything so far that gives us a proper date for the launch of the magazine. But the website lists the launch date as the 27th of August for issue 1. That is Wednesday, the 27th of August. that is not far away at all, as I am recording this on the 23rd of August, and happy days. So 4 days away. Issue 2 should be landing around about the 10th of September, because the first issue always hangs around for 2 weeks. Now, this could be just for trial run. So if it is for trial run, the way the trials work is that you get the first 4 issues released in select locations. So it won't be everywhere in the UK, and they will come later on. But yeah, they release the first 4 issues. They take the magazine away. It doesn't then, you won't see issue 5 for a few months, and they will examine how the sales data works, any feedback and all that type of stuff, and then they go from there. So they can figure out what's the best packaging for it, what's the best way of doing it, what's the likelihood of having an uptick in sales and all that type of stuff. So they look at all that data and then they change it from there. Because they do a trial period, they also have the option to change a few things and tweak a few things. So they may change what comes in premium kits. They may change the Spearhead boxes that you get in general. So for instance, Combat Patrol, originally we were going to get a bonus mini of, say, like the Commissar for the Astra Militarum. They changed that to the Heavy Weapon Squad, which is a far better choice in my opinion. And they did that with a couple of other factions as well. They also changed a few other little bits and pieces as well along the way. So they can do that if they're doing a trial period. If they're not doing a trial period, I will be shocked, but it would be a full launch, which is a little bit crazy to have a very, very stealthy full launch. Normally they've put the occasional advert on TV, on selected channels. Good old Warhammer community will be talking about it and all that type of stuff on their website, and away you go. So we will see. Personally, I think that it's going to be a trial period, and the full launch won't be until November, maybe December, which would make far more sense to give the current magazine, Combat Patrol, a chance to get closer towards its end, because there's still 40 issues of that left. If they moved it so there's released the new magazine so there's only 25, that'll make far more sense in my opinion, because some people do collect both magazines like myself, and yeah, it just makes it more financially viable in the long run. So that is it. Now my question to you guys is, what do you guys think of the new magazine? Are you going to get it? What would you change if you had the choice? And all that good stuff. By all means, leave me a comment down below. I love hearing back from you guys. And for now, thank you very, very much for watching. And I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye now.